Watch this video to find out Kamala Harris's latest flip-flop before it even happens. Hey everybody, I'm Steve Green with Bill Whittle and Scott Ott. This is Right Angle, brought to you by the members of BillWhittle.com. Gentlemen, I don't know about you, but I was fortunate enough to have forgotten Harris's cringeworthy 2019 presidential campaign stop. Hey, remember when she ran for president the first time and it lasted for like 4 hours? Anyway, she stopped at a South Carolina barbershop with rapper Uncle Luke. She was establishing her street cred because, you know, she's a Berkeley girl and all that. Anyway, one of the people she spoke with at the barbershop, they were talking about reparations, and of course, this was before Harris had kind of sort of done a flip-flop on reparations. She was really for it then, and now she's kind of tight-lipped about it. But one of the people she spoke with actually wanted to go a little further than reparations. He said, America, you did this to these people. He's talking historically. You should write laws for black people. Don't group us in with everybody else. So, you know, a separate set of laws for one particular color of people. And Kamala Harris is nodding along this whole time and says, that's right. Just, you know, calling for a separate set of laws for a particular color of people. Scott, do you think Harris needs to flip-flop on saying that's right to this kind of radical proposal that, by the way, unconstitutional as all hell?
I assume the rapper's real name was James Crow. It just, you know, I think a lot of
times...
Goes
by Jim Crow.
Just Jim to his friends, yeah. I think a lot of times politicians kind of tune out when their supporters are talking because they're thinking about what they're going to say. So the best possible spin on this is that Kamala Harris was not paying attention at all to what he was saying and was just head nodding her way through it as she really thought about what she was about to do. And I think your assessment of her 2019 presidential campaign is accurate. The thing I remember most about her is Maya Rudolph's impression of her on SNL.
And she's brilliant, by the way.
As the fun aunt, as we all recall. But anyway, that's a horrifying thing for somebody to say, but it's the kind of thing that an average person on the street might say who hadn't really thought through it very much, and you wouldn't expect much from them. You would think that a team, at least who was paying attention to what the candidate was doing, would pull her aside either during or afterward and say, look, you need to distance yourself from that comment because that's an instant video hit, probably being live streamed at the moment that it went out, that you need to make sure that people understand that, no, we don't need a separate set of laws for black people and other people. It's unfortunate that she has not yet put together a campaign that can handle that kind of an incident, but I think it's also telling. You know, they've raised $361 million in the last month and a half or so, and still something like that gets by. That seems like trouble at the top levels of messaging in the campaign.
Yeah, it really does. But the politics aside, I want to step back, Bill, and look at the broader picture here. I want you to imagine this. Special laws just for a certain color of people. Legally, you know, the races could live apart. We'd exist in a state of apartness, an apartness state, to coin a phrase. I think maybe there's a word for that already in some sort of Dutch language, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Could you do that for me, please?
Well, I have no problem with people living apart so long as they live apart, separate but equal. I mean, that to me is the is the key to the fairness involved here, and that's why I'm fully back this policy. So look, there's two things. There's two things that are really kind of going on with this dynamic. Two possible explanations, and they can both be true. One of them is, as usual, you cannot be responsible for the things that your supporters say.
Yeah, exactly.
You can only be responsible for the things that you say. So one possibility is that this person was just talking. She's on a campaign stop or whatever. She doesn't want to make waves, doesn't want to embarrass this person, just kind of nods and goes along. The other possibility is that she actually agrees with this, which I happen to think, given her record, is probably both of these are true. I think she actually does go along with it. And for those people who may be shocked about this idea of separate laws for different people based on their skin color, this is not new in America today. Virtually all admissions policies to college universities are separate laws for people based on their skin color. Without question, Your ability to hold opinions in public are predicated on what opinions you have based on skin color and preferential treatment and all the rest of it. But to get to the bigger point of it, Steve, obviously the point you're trying to make is, I'll give Kamala Harris the benefit of the doubt in this case only because she didn't say it herself, and I believe in intellectual integrity.
Good.
But for the people that do promote this idea, they promote this idea because this is what they want. This is what they want. They want separate laws for people based on their identity groups. This is the essence of Marxist cultural theory, of critical theory, is that you take what is an undefeatable idea, not just in politics, but in human history. The idea that people can come from all over the world, leave their baggage behind them, come to America, bring their food and their culture, but basically the idea of a melting pot is to say that you may be a Pakistani store owner and you may be a Hindu store owner, and you guys may have stores next to each other, and your relatives may be killing each other enthusiastically back home, but we don't do that here. You come to America to become a new person. And this idea, expressed in a term we don't hear too often anymore, e pluribus unum, out of many one, is the antithesis of identity politics. E pluribus unum says there is no identity. You are an American. That's your identity. There is no further subdivision. And this country is not perfect. It needs to be said. But we continue to strive towards perfection. And all of the steps that we've made towards a more perfect union have been steps to get to that place where there is no legal, ethical, or moral distinction between people based on anything other than the content of their characters. And to nod your head while this is going on is repugnant and needs to be rammed down her throat. And I can say this with some confidence because, as I said, I want to be fair about not being held responsible for what our supporters say. But I will also say on the flip side of that argument is that every now and then on the live show we do, the Stratosphere Lounge or the Stratosphere Studio, very, very rarely, I mean, maybe once a year, somebody will come into the chat and we'll be talking about this and agreeing with everything. And then they'll say something to the effect of, well, it's because it's the Jews. Oh. Or whatever, right? It's not always that. It's something. It's something. And at that point, when I see it anyway, I just simply stop and I just say, listen, we're just not going to tolerate that here. It's just that's just not tolerated here. So this person's banned. If you want to talk about the situation in Palestine, if you want to talk about whether Israel is overreacting to I'm happy to have that discussion. That's a free exchange of ideas. But when you come in with that attitude, it's not welcome here, and this door is closed to you. And that's what she should have done. And I suspect that's what she would have done if it was a policy that she didn't fundamentally agree with.
Steve, since Bill mentioned it, race-based admissions to universities, there's actually a story in the Washington Post as we record this on Friday, the 6th of September, under the headline that says Black enrollment drops at UNC, it's UNC Chapel Hill, after ruling, meaning Supreme Court's ruling overturning race-based admissions. And then it says other schools vary. And when you read the story, indeed, Black admissions have dropped at UNC, University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. However, they do kind of a review of a bunch of other schools. And there, it seems like there was very little, if any, impact of the overturning of affirmative action, essentially. But the paper chose to trumpet the headline that Black enrollment drops all the way down at the bottom of the story. And you know it's my painful habit to do such things, read to the bottom of the story. There's an official at UNC who basically says, we really don't know for sure what accounts for the decrease in Black enrollment. We can't rule out that it might have had something to do with the federal government's fumbling of the FAFSA application process this fall. They got the student aid applications out late and messed up. And so that may have been a factor as well, because a lot of students weren't able to apply, so they didn't know that they had financial aid until really late in the process. So anyway, it just goes to show you that you don't need to have laws that are separate for different racial people in order to treat people equitably.
Indeed. And however much people despise the media, it's not enough, because as Scott just said, the Washington Post took the most divisive thing, stuck it in the headline, and then didn't explain until 18 paragraphs or whatever at the very end of the story that it might not even have been because of the whole topic of the story. It's just shameful.
It's
the way
what they
operate.
do, man. That's who they are, and it's what they do.
Absolutely shameful. Well, it would be if they had a sense of shame. Folks, Harris's flip-flops on fracking, on the electric vehicle mandate, eliminating private health insurance, the border wall, defunding police, the Green New Deal, those are all well documented. And, of course, they provide zero clue as to how she'd actually govern. Although, if you believe that a Marxist-reared Berkeley progressive has changed your stripes in any way, I have a bridge over the San Francisco Bay to say. That aside, and the snark aside, in all seriousness, Harris has this worrisome, and that's to put it lightly, this worrisome tendency to agree with whomever she's speaking with, whether that's because she has no firm convictions of her own, she doesn't know enough to disagree, or she simply lacks a spine and wants to go along to get along. It's all immaterial, because whatever the reason, it means she lacks the right stuff to serve as the chief of a small business, much less a chief executive of this country. And that's your right angle on that, brought to you by the members at BillWhittle.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.